Good morning, folks. Jamie McIntyre here. I'm live from Noosa in Queensland, Australia. For those who don't know where that is, beautiful part of the world. And on behalf of AustralianNationalReview.com, one of the very few independent news sources left in Australia. And this is one of the reasons we're in a predicament, because we've allowed the mainstream media, particularly, basically, to be majority bought out or controlled, influenced by those with certain agendas, and those agendas are not honest and transparent, and we would never support them. That's why what's happening in the world today is because we don't have a voice that represents the Australian people. So I please ask, before I go into today's topics, to please share, support AustralianNationalReview.com. It's a not-for-profit news site that I helped found 7 years ago. I've put a lot of money into it, but all Australians really need to participate in their own rescue. And I ask the business community as well, don't expect just a few individuals to pull their weight to defend your rights to even own a business. The socialist New World, One World agenda coming, they don't intend to allow people to own their own business. They'll be nationalised. They don't intend to allow you to ever travel again if you think you're going to travel again. Other people have different intentions that, other than the politicians. They intend that air travel will never, around the world, will never occur again. Amongst many other things, no private property ownership, no owning your own home, etc. If they get away with what they want, there's some of the things you look forward to. It's a tolerant society where you'll be tracked every step of the way, every inch of the way, and you'll be paying through a chip inserted in your vaccine chip. Wow, sounds like a conspiracy theory, but unfortunately it's not. So today, that brings me to my topic. I want to talk to you folks about the danger of conspiracy theories and tinfoil hat-wearing people in Australia and people around the world, and what we must urgently do to educate these people, because they're a danger and a threat to our democracies. Now, where you'll find these tinfoil hat-wearing people mainly, and these conspiracy theorists, is they tend to all go to a similar place around 6 p.m. Every night, and that's into their lounge room and turn on Channel 7 News, Channel 9 News, ABC. If you're overseas, they tune into CNN. They read the Washington fucking Post. Mainstream media this is where you're going to find a conspiracy theorist. You know why? Because the mainstream media pushes out their daily dose of conspiracy theories for their tin hat foil wearing hat customers, viewers, to push more lies, propaganda, deceit, because mainstream media is owned, bought, and controlled by a bunch of individuals in this world that have certain agendas that you and I will not support, and those agendas are not democratic. That's why we have the situation we have in the world today. So let's see if we can prove this, by the way. So conspiracy theorists. First of all, here's how to be a conspiracy theorist. You have to watch Channel 7 News, Channel 9 News pretty much religiously, ABC, read the fucking newspapers in Australia and around the world, and you must never question what they tell you. Whatever they say is gospel, is complete truth. They would never lie or deceive, mislead the general public, now would they? Now, anyone that's dumb enough to believe that is definitely a conspiracy theorist. These journalists are not real journalists. They're paid to lie to you. They're not allowed to write an article on the truth. They're not allowed to tell you the truth, because if they did, they'd have no job. How do you get journalists to conform? It's very easy. Same as how they got you to conform at school. School is teaching you conformity from 5 years old. As soon as you walk into the pre-programming propaganda thing called school, as Mark Twain said, never let schooling get in the way of a good education. They don't teach intelligence. They don't teach common sense. If you think academia equals intelligence, then also you're more likely to be conspiracy theorists. You think degrees on your wall to determine intelligence. No offense to those who've been to uni. I've been to uni, but I dropped out of uni, mainly because I could see a lot of this is bullshit, because in the real world, there's those who can think and critically think, that can be rebellious, that can stand up to the propaganda and program. So school, if we buy the conformity, that's why it's easy to be a conspiracy theorist, because we watch the news, we obey authority, that's what they teach us, and we don't question. But here's how you can tell a conspiracy theorist as well. They would never question Channel 7 News or Channel 9 News. Whatever they tell them must be the truth. But if anyone opposes an alternative theory, even if that alternative theory is backed up by science, backed up by hard evidence, no, that's a conspiracy theory. Why is these alternative theories a conspiracy theory? Because Channel 7, Channel 9 News, ABC, the dodgy Fairfax media, etc., told these people that anything else is conspiracy. Just believe what we tell you daily on the news, without question, without us providing any evidence, and you'll be okay. That's pretty much how you determine a conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat-wearing person. And unfortunately, they used to be the majority. However, I believe at least 40% of the population now is awake to the con of mainstream media, the conspiracy theories they push. It used to be 10 or 15%, and I think it's getting very close to that 50% plus of people that realize don't believe everything you read in the newspaper, but some people still do. So those people that still believe Channel 7 News, Channel 9 News, etc. has never lied to you, wake the fuck up. I mean, stop being a disservice to your country, disservice to humanity. These politicians and these media outlets rely on the dumbest of the dumb to get their power. You know, because if people knew the con behind the falsified pandemic of coronavirus and other scams that tried to pull upon on people, then they would never get away with it. They only get away with it because they rely on the dumbest of the dumb. And not to be offensive, not that they're dumb people, but they just never question. Like, for instance, I never questioned that, 7 years ago, before that, I was a pro-vax. I never questioned that maybe vaccines aren't as safe as they tell us. Maybe vaccines aren't this great medical breakthrough example. That's an example of awakening to find out evidence. So if you believe the mainstream media conspiracy theories, you'll believe that, well, there should have been 160,000 Australians dead by now in April because this global pandemic was going to wipe out humanity. There should have been millions of Americans dead. Yet we know it's not a global pandemic. We know this for a couple of reasons. One, the lies that they've been telling mainstream media. If it was a true global pandemic, I can tell you this, you would not hear a word out of the mainstream media or governments because they would cover it up. They wouldn't tell you if it was really a pandemic. If they're selling you something every day, hyping it, they're trying to sell you something. The question is, what are they trying to sell you? Why do they want you so scared? Why do they want you to believe it's a global pandemic? If this is a global pandemic, I don't know about you, but I would have thought a real pandemic wouldn't need to falsify deaths, wouldn't need to deliberately inflate deaths, wouldn't need to reclassify flu deaths and cancer deaths as COVID deaths. There's hard evidence of that occurring on a large scale. Actually, in fact, the National Health Institute of Italy come out months ago. Why didn't the mainstream media mention this? Sky News is about the only one that did, about the only news that's standing up for fellow Australians in this country. Highlighted as well, as I did. National Health Institute in Italy, 88% of those that claimed to died of COVID didn't actually die of COVID. They're already sick and dying, died of other causes, and it was just done to inflate and deceive and mislead the public. So we knew that months ago. So if you still think there's a global pandemic, I'm sorry, you've been lied to. I don't want to break it to you, but go and do some fucking research. Stop. All you have to do to stop being a conspiracy theorist is actually ask questions and demand evidence. And you have every right to do that. Start messaging Channel 9 News and the Dodgy Report and Channel 7 News and Fairfax Me and go, okay, you're trying to tell us this. Show us some fucking evidence. This is a global pandemic. Show us the hard evidence. Oh, people are dying. Yes, well, that's not hard evidence because guess what? People die every fucking day. Wow, since when did it become the new global sport to track deaths? How sadistic is that? I mean, what a fucking joke. Aged care homes. Most people dying in aged care homes is where they get new COVID deaths in Australia. I wonder why, because people die every day in aged care homes. They're not only flu vaccinated to fucking death. Italy doctors highlighted that there was a spike in elderly deaths last October, before the coronavirus apparently, from the 4-in-1 flu vax. But of course we know, even governments had to admit the flu vaccine doesn't protect you against the coronavirus, and there's plenty of studies in British Medical Journal and also US defense studies that showing getting the flu vaccine will increase your susceptibility to the coronavirus, of dying of it, by 36%. But our government thought it's a good idea because they're sponsored by our fucking Bill Gates and his vaccine cronies to get rid of the stockpiles of the flu vax by telling you should take it. I mean, these are the lies they tell you. So I could go into all the other lies, but pretty much, here's the deal. Anything mainstream media tells you is a fucking lie until proven otherwise. Make sense? Many of us were scared meetings. We thought this was true, what they were talking about, but now we know it's actually not the case. So, first of all, anything on mainstream media, assume it's a lie until proven otherwise, and just demand and go, show us some proof, because these alternative theories actually can be proven. Anything we're talking about. So the conspiracy theorists, we must help educate them to stop being a disservice to humanity, because the mainstream media and our politicians rely on the dumbest of the dumb in our society to get away with what they're doing. And more people have woken up, and this year has been the greatest awakening of the human soul, human spirit I've ever witnessed, and probably has ever occurred on the planet ever. So that's exciting news. Make these fuckers pay. Demand they provide evidence. I put up $1 million to mainstream media, to gutless journalists, gutless politicians in this country, and I'll extend that around the world. Any media, politicians around the world, $1 million challenge. Put up or shut up. Show us some evidence, independent proof that the COVID deaths are not inflated. And we know they're inflated, not inadvertently, but deliberately inflated. Why? Because it's not a real pandemic. Under 2010 definitions, this isn't even a pandemic. We know why it's deemed a pandemic, because Bill Gates and his vaccine cronies, according to a parliamentary, European parliamentary motion back in 2010, said the drug companies, vaccine makers, have dangerous levels of influence over who. And they got caught out trying to hype a normal flu strain in South America into a global pandemic, and they didn't get away with it. So what they did, Billy Gates and all the other dodgy fuckers in vaccine cronies, they had the definitions changed. So this time when they tried this scam again, which just happens to be in a US presidential election, here, go figure, they tried this scam again and got away with it. Because why do they need WHO to deem it as a pandemic? Because once they deem it as a pandemic, the scam works this way. They then, governments that have signed up as members of WHO, including Australia and most governments around the world, have to hand over billions of dollars towards health, vaccines, research, grants, medical supplies, etc., to the vaccine makers, which Billy Gates controls most of. So why are you wondering whether this is a scam? Our government's already been scamming. Billy Gates, who owns WHO, don't know he owns WHO? Well, he owns WHO. He controls WHO. He's not a philanthropist. Another lie told you by mainstream media. He's a con man. He's a spiv, as was his dad. His dad was friends with the Rockefellers, George Soros when he was younger. These are spivs. These are ultimate con man. George Soros bought heavily into Channel 9, by the way. Did you realize last year? He funds Get Up and these other extreme left-wing nut groups that want to push socialism and control the New World Order, which is a communist totalitarian future. And if you want that, keep watching Channel 7 News, stay asleep. You don't have to worry about anything. If you're happy to live in communist China and have government dictate every part of your life, well then, nothing to worry about. You should fuck off though and go and live in China, because we don't want you in Australia. This is a democratic country, or meant to be, and we only want people that want to take charge of their own life and be accountable for their life and not have the government control every aspect of their life. If you want the government to control every aspect of your life, very un-Australian, go live somewhere else. We don't want you. I'm sorry, but that's not the country Australia is or will ever be. Makes sense? So, anyhow, we can tell you a lot. Guess what? Some of the countries that aren't members of WHO, like Taiwan, didn't have a pandemic. Made very few deaths. Didn't have to do excessive lockdowns. Why? Because they don't follow WHO's advice. Not a member of WHO, no pandemic. Member of WHO, countries had a supposed falsified pandemic. Anyhow, nice chatting to you today, but send out the word. I agree, we must stop the conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hat wearing people. They're the people that are sitting watching this Channel 7 News, 6 p.m. weeknights, and Channel 9 News, etc. We need to educate these people. They're a disservice to humanity. Not that they're unintelligent, but they're just not thinking. Why they're not thinking? Because they've just been programmed by the media all their life and from school to accept and believe whatever and obey authority. That's dangerous. These people will destroy our way of life. We must wake them up. And the good news is many people are waking up. I'll do a video talking about those. When you do wake up and go down the rabbit hole, how to deal with that, because mentally it's quite traumatic at first, but we're all in this together. United we stand, divided we fall. We must do our best to educate and awake people up to lies and deceit pushed by Channel 7 News. Talk to you soon.